Okay, so this starter here is out of my 2001 Dodge 24 valve. However, all of the second gens take the same starter, which is 94 to '02. I honestly kind of forget the years. I just, second, third gen is kind of, I think of them in the generations, not necessarily the years. Anyways, yeah, this is a starter out of my pickup. What it was doing was it would sometimes you'd go to turn the key and you just hear like a click, like a pretty energetic click of the solenoid snapping shut inside of the starter, but the starter motor itself would not engage. Or other times, you would go to turn the key and you'd get a click, and then maybe a quarter of a second later or whatever, the starter motor would actually engage and the engine fire up. What that is caused from, and it's a very common problem on these starters in the Dodges. It's not actually as common in other pickup starters in my experience. Trucks that had the older 41 MT starter, they would do this, except, because they were, big honking, big some bitch starters, you'd get, I don't know, 800,000 out of them or something before they'd start to click. And even then they'd, click for another, they do the like click, click, start thing for the next, 50,000 miles or something like that before they'd finally give up the ghost on you. But anyways, this here about the Dodge starters. God damn it. How the fuck do I turn my light on? There we go. So, in these starters here, there is a electromagnet coil in this part of the body right here that pulls this plunger, which has a copper contact on the back of it. It pulls this plunger in and out, not only to engage the Bendix into the ring gear, but also to slam the contacts shut. And so we got power coming in from the battery here. This here essentially acts as the electrical switch, if you will, and power out from here down to the starter motor. What happens is that these things will absolutely hoop-a-joop the one side of the starter contacts, always on the battery side. The reason it only happens on one side is because, the pickup starter motor is DC, and so the current only flows in one direction. It kind of doesn't make sense to me that it happens on the battery side. I would just, I don't know, in my mind, I would expect it to happen on the motor side of the contact. But, yeah. Anyways, that's what it does, is happens on the battery side. So there's two different sizes of contacts. These ones here are actually the larger size. There is also this size of contact here. They increased the size of the contact area to try and compensate for this problem, but it still does happen. I don't remember how many miles I had on this starter here, and this is a different contact, but it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on here. Is that the battery side will erode the starter contact, and so because it only happens on one side, then the contact on this side is the full thickness, and the contact on this side is eroded. And so because there's not any like wiggle room in this plunger here, when it slams shut, it'll make contact on the motor side, but it won't actually make contact on the battery side. And then because it arcs out and what have you, it just erodes away, and to the point where you won't be able to start the vehicle. The plungers themselves don't wear too terribly bad. It's mainly just that contact. And so because this fits my pickup, and also because it fits like a couple friends' pickups and what have you, I have several of these starters around, and whenever we do one for like a customer job or something like that, if they don't want their old starter, I will take it and put contacts in and keep it as a spare. This starter here is just like a junky. I think I bought it at like CarQuest or some shit like that. And if I were to take a shot in the dark, I don't know, I probably have 100,000 miles on it or something. Really, not all that much. Um, the These aftermarket starters don't last nearly as long as the factory Denso starters. Um, Thankfully, in my case, there is a local starter and alternator shop with a with a grumpy old timer that works there that's been doing it for 60 years, and the fucking guy is a walking encyclopedia of knowledge. It's just absolutely fantastic, and he's actually pretty nice and what have you, but when you first walk in there and see the guy, he kind of looks like pissed off and what have you. But so in my case, I'm going to go down to that guy's shop and buy a factory Nippon Denso starter or Denso starter. And at his shop, I think they're like $525 for the factory Denso starters, but they last way the hell longer and crank the engine way the hell faster than these aftermarket starters. That being said, I'm still going to keep this one here as a spare after I replace the contact. If you don't have a local starter shop like that in your area, there is a website online called Larry B's. They not only sell they sell complete starters. They also sell all manner of repair parts for starters, and they have, you know, just the contacts by themselves, the contacts with the plunger assembly, all kinds of shit. And if I remember right, looking on Larry B's the other day, which, mind you, this is what, May 10th or whatever of 2024. So, you know, sure in the future prices are going to do nothing but go up. I think a starter on there was like $560 or something like that, and then plus I'm sure there's shipping and what have you. But you know, if you're the type of person to keep a vehicle for a long time and, you know, appreciate quality and what have you, the factory Denso starter is definitely the way to go. But yeah, if you can get your hands on a used one of these starters, that was just, you know, clicking for the guy, just take the back cap off here, and I guess I should, you know, show that the back cap on here is just held on by 3 little screws. Take the back cap off, pull the plunger out. Oh, and I should say too, there is, whoop. Oh, bummer. Okay, thankfully that was actually very easy to find. There is a little ball bearing that goes down in the center of that hole, like so. And if that falls out, it just goes in like so. Change the contact, put it back together. And as far as changing the contact, there's just a jam nut here. Of course, this nut is what holds the cables on. Jam nut there, and comes apart, and there's like little insulators and what have you. And I would hope that is easy enough to figure out. And me and my helper just found out the other day, like just realized what the difference is. So, like I was saying, the all of the second gen take this same starter, where if you're looking at the back side of it here, that the battery connection is on the left hand side, looking at it this ways, and the signal wire is on top here. The 2003 to 2006, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me, but the 5.9 common rail takes a different part number starter, even though it's still a Denso starter that looks essentially identical to this. And it's fucking bullshit that they do it, but what's different about those starters is that the signal connection, instead of being over here, is over here, and instead of it just being a normal threaded on deal, it's got some bullshit quick connect pin on there. and the battery power comes in from the right hand side of the starter, and this wire that goes to the motor is hooked onto the left hand side. The really bitch part about that, though, is that when the starter is installed in the pickup, the right side of the starter here of the solenoid is more difficult to get to than this side. Like the starter sits in the pickup more or less like this, with this facing down and this side facing up. And so on the second gen style, these connections are very, very easy to get to. But on the third gen style, or the 5.9 common rail style, when it's mirror imaged, it puts the battery and signal connection on the top side and is more difficult to get to. Personally, if it were me and I had a 5.9 common rail, I would, if comes time to change the starter, I would get rid of the 5.9 common rail style starter and I would go to this style here. Also, the other advantage to the second gen style starter is that it came in more years of pickups. And so chances are that it would be easier to find a second gen style starter than a 5.9 common rail. That having been said, I am going to make myself a adapter to be able to go from a ring terminal to that quick connect that's on the 5.9 common rail starter, so that way if I find myself in a pinch, I can put a starter on my pickup that fits from what I say 94 to 06, so 12 years of a pickup or whatever. So that's a pretty decent year range that you could make a starter work for your pickup. But yeah, if you got a click start deal going on with your pickup, take it apart, and I would imagine that this here is what you're going to find.